my neighbor. He was just an old, quiet man who lived alone.
At least, that's what everyone in our neighborhood thought.
But me, I wasn't so sure. Almost every night, I'd hear strange sounds coming from his house. Sounds that made my blood run cold. It sounded like children, screaming. Sometimes it was laughter, but other times it was pure terror. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, that it was just the wind or the TV. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong.
I'd watch him from my window, this frail old man shuffling around his yard, and my mind would race with horrible possibilities.
What was he hiding behind that weathered front door? The screams became a regular part of my nights, a chilling soundtrack to my sleepless hours. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding in my chest. Each cry felt like a plea for help, a plea that nobody else seemed to hear. I mentioned it to my parents once, but they brushed it off. He's a lonely old man, probably just has the television on too loud, they'd say. The police. What would I tell them? I think I hear things at night. They'd think I was crazy, so I was on my own. My imagination ran wild. Was he holding them captive? Was he some kind of monster disguised as a harmless senior? The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that I had to do something. The fear was eating me alive, but the guilt of doing nothing was even worse. One evening, the sounds were louder than ever. It was a mix of frantic shrieks and what sounded like sobbing. That was it. I couldn't stand it for another second. My heart felt like it was going to explode out of my chest. But I knew I couldn't live with myself if I didn't find out what was happening. Pulling on my hoodie, I slipped out my back door, my sneakers silent on the damp grass. The air was cold, and every shadow seemed to hide a threat. His house loomed in the darkness, a single dim light glowing from a basement window. That was where the sounds were coming from. My hands were shaking, my breath catching in my throat. But I had to know the truth. I crept along the side of his house, staying low, moving from bush to bush. The fence separating our yards was old and rickety. As quietly as I could, I hoisted myself over, landing with a soft thud on the other side. My heart was a drum against my ribs. I was trespassing. If he caught me, I pushed the thought away. I tiptoed towards the back of the house, where a set of worn wooden stairs led down to the basement, and there it was. The basement door slightly ajar. A sliver of light and muffled voices leaked out into the night. This was it. This was the point of no return. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I reached out a trembling hand and slowly, carefully pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. My eyes struggled to adjust to the light. The first thing that hit me wasn't a sight, but a smell. It wasn't the damp, musty odor I expected from a basement. It was warm. It smelled like freshly baked cookies and hot soup, and the sounds, they weren't screams of terror anymore. They were squeals of delight, bursts of laughter, and the excited chatter of many small voices. I pushed the door a little wider, my mind reeling in confusion. What I saw inside made my brain short-circuit. The basement had been transformed into a cozy, colorful playroom. There were toys everywhere, books stacked on shelves, and drawings taped to the stone walls. And in the middle of it all were children. Dozens of them, kids of all ages, running around, playing games, stuffing their faces with snacks. And then I saw him. The old man, my terrifying neighbor. He was sitting on the floor, a little girl on his lap, as he told a story with animated gestures. He wasn't the monster from my nightmares. His face, which I had always seen as scary and grim, was lit up with a warm, gentle smile. His eyes, which I thought were cold and menacing, were filled with kindness and love. A little boy ran up to him and tugged on his sweater, and the old man ruffled his hair affectionately. The scene was so peaceful, so happy, it felt completely surreal. It was the absolute last thing I expected to find. My jaw was on the floor. I couldn't reconcile the horrifying images in my head with the beautiful reality in front of me. I must have made a sound, because suddenly the old man's head snapped up and his eyes locked onto mine. The smile vanished, replaced by a look of surprise and then caution. The room fell silent. All the children turned to stare at me, the intruder in their safe haven. My throat was dry. I felt like I was going to be sick. My voice came out as a shaky whisper. What is going on here? The old man slowly got to his feet, his joints creaking. He looked at me not with anger, but with a deep, weary sadness in his kind eyes. "You must be the boy from next door," he said, his voice soft and raspy. He took a slow step towards me. "Please, don't be afraid, and please don't call the police. These children," he began, gesturing around the room at the dozens of curious faces staring at me. "They are not prisoners. They are survivors." He walked over to a little girl who was hiding behind a couch and gently coaxed her out, stroking her hair. Some of them lost their parents in accidents. Others were abandoned, left to fend for themselves on the streets. Their screams you heard at night. Those were nightmares. They've seen things no child should ever have to see. He looked back at me, his gaze intense. "I gave them a home when no one else would. I give them food, a warm bed, and a place where they can feel safe. A place where they can just be kids again." I stood there, frozen, the weight of his words crashing down on me. All this time, I had painted him as a villain, a monster who preyed on the innocent. I had imagined the worst, letting my fear create a narrative that couldn't have been further from the truth. The screams weren't from pain he was inflicting. They were echoes of pain he was trying to heal. He wasn't a kidnapper, he was a savior, a guardian angel disguised as a scary old man. The shame washed over me, hot and heavy. My eyes welled up with tears as I looked from his tired, kind face to the happy, safe children playing around him. He had built a sanctuary in his basement, a secret haven for the lost and forgotten. In that moment, my entire world shifted. I saw the true meaning of heroism, not in a cape or a mask, but in the quiet, selfless actions of an ordinary man. He risked everything, living in the shadows of suspicion, just to give these kids a chance at a life they deserved. He was their father, their grandfather, their protector. He was their hope. I finally understood. The Neighbor's Secret wasn't a dark horror story. It was a story of incredible compassion and humanity, and it was a secret I knew I would now help him keep. Thank you so much for watching. This story is a reminder that things aren't always what they seem, and sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones we never notice. If you were moved by this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. See you in the next one.